news updates. And as you can tell from today's title, Congress is coming after your 401k. America's pension crisis is getting worse. I'm going to be covering several different articles, all dealing with the ongoing pension crisis we're experiencing here in America and what is to come. And so we're only 4 days into the new year, and already we have news about countries deciding to remove themselves or rethink the dollar, or aka dump the dollar. President Erdogan in Turkey tells his citizens in order to help the country out, it'd be in your best interest to go under your pillow, grab the dollars, the euros, and gold. And as you tell from today's title, how the baby boomers will lose their retirement nest egg, I want to share with you a couple thoughts as well as some articles on how the next market correction will be catastrophic for a lot of people.
All right, RTD Midday News check-in. Wanted to take a minute and share a couple articles that caught my attention, as well as share with you some things happening in the precious metals side of things. Looks like gold and silver is did some pretty good work today thus far, and so give it a minute before I dive in further. Just wanted to share a couple articles, and then more importantly, we can talk about them in greater detail tonight on the call-in portion. And so let me give it a second. We got Mr. Low Blood Pressure. How you doing, my friend? What else we got? We got Jay, we got JoJo. How you guys doing, man? And as always, any other news stories that come across your radar, definitely let me know, and I will pull them up. And so it's kind of, midday-ish, so there's a couple things worthy of talking about. But as always, after the markets close is when the best stories come out as a result of what happened in the day's market. So, all right, so what I'm going to do, basically, as always, for those that might be tuning in or catching this later on throughout the day, as always, if you have not, make sure you connect with me via the media sources down below, just in case one day RTD is no longer on YouTube, which is more than possible. And so I'm just going to thumb through some of the titles, read through, share my 2 cents off these articles, and then pass it on to you guys so you can dive in further for yourself. And so Mr. Low Blood Pressure says, I can't believe people asking for me. I'm just a regular no one. Hey, Mr. Low Blood Pressure, I think it's a combination of your sense of humor as well as the great questions you ask that makes it where people enjoy hearing from you. So definitely have to join me more often on RTD, it looks like. So definitely looking forward to doing that. So Excalibur says, what's up? How you doing, my friend? And let me see here. I'm assuming that if you guys have been paying attention throughout the markets today, gold went above 1,800, and I think it just settled slightly, below the 1,800 mark temporarily. But once again, it's going to go up. And then there's a couple articles I have about some currencies. Once again, national currencies in a couple countries that's just being ravished right now. But on the flip side of that, they're experiencing all-time highs in those true anchors of money, which happens to be gold and silver. So the Daytona pipeline. Jay, give me the rundown on that. I think I've heard something about a pipeline being stopped, I think along the East Coast, but I haven't heard much about the Dakota pipeline. So I'll check into that as well. King D says, Batman villain. All right, man. So I'm going to dive into some of these articles here, and then we will move right along. And so just within 2 days, so from this article right here, this is an article that came out today. And, of course, it's a mainstream story, so it's one of those things where just the very title itself is designed to get your attention more so as a scare tactic as well as a informative piece that's written by someone that ultimately has an agenda behind what they're probably writing. But it says a veteran strategist warned that the Fed is driving stocks to the, quote, mother of all melt-ups, comparing it to the dot-com situation in 1999. And so it goes on by sharing some of his thoughts as to why that is. And, of course, everybody in the alternative media realm kind of know why the markets are going up. It's all Fed-induced. And so he talks about... He said the actions by the Fed, including purchasing corporate bonds, have prompted a move out of bonds into equities, causing the latter to be in the mother of all melt-ups. It says, Hardini said the Fed's decision to keep interest rates at zero will also force prices to earning ratios on stocks to turn higher. And so what I found interesting about this article here is that, for those that follow the alternative media realm, everybody kind of know, you can pinpoint the reason for the market melt up, as he's mentioning here. But then on top of this, just yesterday, an article came across my attention that I did not get a chance to talk about. And of course, everything that goes up must come down. And so I'll put this article here. if anybody has any interest in finding out more about it. But it's more so just an eye-catching piece that makes you wonder exactly what the ultimate agenda is, other than to keep people calm and confident in the direction of their financial investing. And so here's the next article here that really, I think, is more indicative of what we should expect on the very low end, probably. And so here, this is as of yesterday, and it says the stock market is poised for a 40% drop, warns an economist. So we have a market analyst or market veteran, and then we have economists, all within 24-hour period, according to the mainstream media here, talking about the correction. And what's interesting about this article here is that it talks about, the recession we're currently in now, as well as a global health situation being the reason for it. And it says here, the pandemic is likely to be the most disruptive financial and social event since World War II, with equally long-lasting consequences. And it's just the idea that, as I always mentioned before, what we're currently experiencing now and the volatility of the markets, as well as the artificial nature of the markets, it's temporary. It will not go on forever. And I think the sad part about all this, the majority of the population has yet to really catch on to how bad things really are becoming. And so I think that, let me see, I'm going to share this. So we got in the chat. It says, it's not like Sun, Arizona. What up, y'all? Okay, so got a couple people coming in late. How's everybody doing? Yep. Rod, I mentioned gold earlier. And so outside of these articles here talking about the equities markets and where to go and all that stuff like that, we all know where we ultimately should be, primarily when it comes to preserving and benefiting off the manipulation of these markets here. So definitely stuff that I think is worthy of just continuing to talk about in the meantime. Low blood pressure. I did enjoy the Joker movie. My wife kept asking me. Yeah. And so as far as gold and silver holding their current possession, I think I saw silver at 1869 not long ago. So they probably won't hold long, but yet we know where they're going to go back to. And so outside of the article I just mentioned here, one analyst talking about the markets going up and similar to 99. We know what happened there. And then another economist talking about a 40% correction. I think based upon the artificial nature of everything, 40% would be very light in comparison to where it would ultimately go. In the same time that the southern states are shutting down, therefore there's going to be more business closures and all the things that we're currently experiencing over the last 4 months. And so ultimately you shouldn't be surprised. And so Crazy Joe says, I hope it crashes soon. Man, I don't think, I'm not looking forward to it to ultimately crash or correct to its what it could be considered fair market value, which at this point nobody knows because everything has been propped up the last decade plus. But yet when it crashes or corrects, we will be in an environment that we will not probably find comfortable or enjoyable, no matter how much you've stacked or how much you've thought you've prepared, because it's going to be a complete meltdown of all our everything that we've known to this point in this country here, in the land of opportunity for a lot of people thus far will be minimal. Burger King meals now $9.99. Wow, I haven't eaten a Burger King in quite some time. Just got more 90% junk silver, getting that weight up. Brian, there you go, my man. All right, so let me keep moving right along. I just wanted to touch on some of these primary topics here, and we can talk further later on tonight. And so a little bit of news, or not much news, but just more insight as to what's going on with this next round of stimulus. And so as we know that Congress is about to take their little mini hiatus or vacation, here it looks like White House wants stimulus by August recess with a $1 trillion cap. So ultimately, since they won't be able to agree upon a complete stimulus package, they want to have at least a minimum of a trillion, of $1 trillion to expend for whatever purposes. And of course, as White House is talking about, Kudlow's saying, Trump is even saying the market's recovering, economy starting to roar back, all that stuff like that. Okay, we'll find out. But once again, here's their primary reason for why they would need this trillion, and it has to do with the fact that the unemployment that's currently underway now, as well as what's coming, there's still need of a little cushion for people out there in the form of these stimulus packages and whatever they plan on throwing out there. So Here's just a little quote here from Pence staff. It says, "I think we want to make sure that people that are still unemployed or hurting are protected. But at the same time, we want to make sure that there's no consideration of the fact that the economy is bouncing back and want to try to contain the amount of spending." So the economy is bouncing back, but yet because of unemployment, they want to make sure there's a little wiggle room there. So 1 trillion seems to be the latest number that they're bouncing around in the short term. But we're going to be hearing the word stimulus, trillions for months and years to come in this new decade of uncertainty that we're entered into. So thought it was interesting that they're trying to put out little small figures to make it seem like it's manageable or doable. And so I'll share this article in the chat if anybody wants to dive in further for yourself and see what it's all about in greater detail. And so, question here says, Sean says, have you seen the World Economic Forum has a name for the transition? They are calling it the Great Reset. Yeah, Sean. So I read their, I think it was a 10-page like white paper. And so I actually read through that a while back. I think about a week or two ago. So yes, aware of that. And it's more than just the monetary side of things. They have a whole social, political, they got a whole little new world order type of ordeal within that little white paper. So it all plays into the fact that this is all part of a plan that was orchestrated and timed for this current decade. And that's one of the things that really bothers me the most, is that this decade is it's been dedicated towards ushering in the change that they want. They referring to the world governments, the world orchestrators, and all the people behind all this chaos we're experiencing now. This decade is going to be a complete it's a decade of complete chaos ultimately, because it's going to take several years to roll out all these agendas. And in the midst of breaking down the American family or families around the world, there's going to be so much division amongst family members on the political side, financial side. Small businesses will be ravished. Amongst all that, I got an article here talking about how technology is going to be ushered in, and central bank digital currency is going to come into play. And they're talking about the Bank of International Settlement. I actually had an article that I didn't actually bring up today, just it didn't contain much, but it's talking about how by 2024 they're anticipating, this is a part of their plan, as to having digital currencies, central bank digital currencies, fully operational alongside cash until it's fully rolled out. And then at that point, they're going to look to remove cash. So that's 4 years away. So everything we're experiencing now, all the adjustments we're all having to make, is going to be a long, drawn out, decade long process, to where my personal opinion is that by the end of this, or the middle to end of this decade here, America would no longer look the same politically, socially, financially, you name it. Just our country will no longer look like the country that we're used to now, or the country we grew up in a long time ago. So yeah, man, but that's just a little side note there. And so if you guys have any thoughts or questions, just highlight a Rethinking a Dollar, sort of stand out, and I'll definitely share my thoughts on it. So Brian says, make sure you stay proportional while you prep. Have food, water, power, cash, gold, silver, crypto, security, etc. If you want cash to last a year, have enough of everything else to last a year. I dig that one. Full of Hope says, 7 p.m. now. This is a great live stream time. 7 p.m. So Full of Hope, you are obviously over in the European area. I take it if it's 7 p.m. your time, so you're 5 hours ahead. Partnership with Zilcola, I'm not sure how I pronounce that one, has a Singapore gold stable coin. Yeah, and that's another thing. Where everything now is still in its infancy phase. All the projects is being rolled out with backing of coins and all types of stuff like that. Sounds good right now, it's just being rolled out, but ultimately by the middle of this decade, most of those projects I don't think will be in place still, because they will be dismantled or disrupted by just orchestrating entities that will not have competition whatsoever. So of course in the short term they hold promise, and of course you can probably get involved and see those things as they rise, normally price wise. Ireland, all right, appreciate you for watching from Ireland. How are things in your neck of the woods? They're setting the stage for a one world government, hands down. That is the direction they want to take us in, and that's why it won't happen overnight. That's why I'm saying I think this decade here will be that time frame where we look up in 2030 we don't recognize anything that resembles the country, or here in America especially, that we grew up in, that we know. Wendell says, when Dow hits 50,000 this year, the correction will happen after the elections take place. More than possible. More than possible. So here's another question throw out there. No doubt the Dow will probably go towards 50, 60, 70,000. And so as all currencies crumble, it's reflected in higher equities prices as people rush towards trying to retain items or assets that appear to appreciate nominally, which means that there's going to be all types of companies that should not be invested in. People will buy. Therefore, it's going to go through the roof. Okay. And so is it a matter of if Trump wins or Biden wins, will there be an immediate correction, or will there be some type of event from outside the country that leads to that? Those are all going to be things that we'll find out as it occurs. But it looks like, I imagine here, everyone's expecting some type of correction. So, and Nano Joe says it's all about Bitcoin. These ICOs and DeFi projects are created for the purpose of attaining more Bitcoin. Yeah, and that's where I think right now, as I just referenced, everything in that sector appears to be doing well, getting a lot of momentum, getting a lot of attention, because people are chasing yield. Right now, you can't park funds in banks and earn anything. So getting involved in a lot of these projects are, rewarding people plentifully right now. But like I just mentioned, in 5 years or so, I don't think a lot of these projects will be tolerated by the financial institutions that be, or the governments. And for those that try to go completely, not necessarily like just to go out on their own and not have anything to do with the financial regulations or whatnot, I think that they're going to be frowned upon, and they're going to be basically, especially that bill I talked about last week, Bill 4051, where it opens a doorway for a lack of privacy. Therefore, they can put a lot of those entities up under some terrorists or money laundering type of facilities, and it caused problems for a lot of people. But all right, so enough of me ranting. A couple more articles I want to get to. It says, when the dollar goes, the Dow goes. Jeff. Yeah, I would like to believe that. But yet, once again, for some reason, I think the Federal Reserve note. So I like to distinguish between the dollar that we've known throughout the last 100 years. There's the United States mint dollar, and then there's the Federal Reserve note dollar. The Federal Reserve note dollar has been fully weaponized. It's like going to be a nuclear reactor pretty soon. It's going to go off the way they're creating reserves, the way as well as paper. But yet the minted dollars will do well. So that's why I like to distinguish between where the dollar is going. The coin dollar is going to do quite well as a result of the paper going belly up. So anyway, I'm doing too much rant. So I want to actually get to the next article, which happens to be about coinage. And so I saw this on Zero Hedge, thought I would share it. And so I talked about this last night about the coin shortages. We're all seeing, advertisement on top of on stores or whatnot. And it said the Federal Reserve has basically not allowed coins out. There's been shortage of coins. So this article here talks about the fact that it looks like the mint's cranking up coinage. But one thing I noticed that I found to be very interesting is that this graph here. And so this is just a graph from within here. It says the U.S. Mint ups coin production to circumvent shortage. And so one thing I find to be very interesting is that this graph here shows that over the last 4 years, give or take, there's been a decline in the production or creation of coinage. So we got from 2016, 17, 18, 19, it's been trending downwards all of a sudden up until 2020, where we're being told that the coin production has been increased. And that's why I question the mint actually bringing more coins into circulation, just because I think a part of their agenda towards the cashless side of things is to minimize causing a shortage. So basically, like we know, the Bureau of Labor Statistics is lying through the roof with all their employment numbers and all the stats that's been given. We all know that those have been doctored to tell a different story. I wouldn't be surprised if the information given here from the mint, as far as the amount of coinage that they're talking about bringing into existence this year, is also something that we can't rely upon. So, because I don't see them creating more coins as they're trying to intentionally usher out coins as we head into the 2020s, where they want us to go cashless. So, but I thought it was worth mentioning just because that's what we're being told, but I question it. as always. So I'll put this in the chat if anybody wants to find out more about it. And then the next article here happens to be about currency. And so this is a story that I think is very sad, but yet it's something that's been going on for quite some time now. But it's Lebanon's economic crisis is spinning out of control fast. And one of the things when it talks about just the amount of pain that it's causing within that country, and it talks about the official peg of the pound to the dollar is at 1,500 Lebanese pounds for $1. And it says that the minimum wage is 675,000 pounds, which would be worth $450 at the official rate. But then on the black market, it's only $70. So imagine having your lives completely ruined because of your national currency and not having much you can do about it. So this is one of the reasons why it's extremely important for those that recognize the devastation that's been done in national currencies to have what I consider to be national currency insurance. You want to insure yourselves against your national currencies by holding actual weight in of itself. Okay, so let me see here. Let me see a couple thoughts here. Let me check in with the chat real quick. August Jones says, Mike, your sound pitch distorted. Turn down a bit, sir. Okay, I will dial it back here and cut it down a little bit here. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if that sounds a bit better. Talking too close to the mic. And then Full of Hope, I appreciate that love offering to the channel there. It says 3 Georges dam is worrisome. If it goes up, 400 million Chinese die, but the many nuke plants that would be destroyed would come across Pacific iodine. Yes. Okay. So that has been brought to my attention about the issues that's happening in China and the devastation it could cause. And so I heard about of course, the dams were not built by the Chinese. It was built by the Russians, or some of them built by the Russians umpteen years ago, which means the actual, what's it called, the structure of those projects there are very poor in nature. So I have to check further into that. But my question is, has there already sprung a leak and starting to cause issues right now? Because I'd imagine if the Chinese appear to have pretty decent technology to where them having known about this well in advance, if they wanted to prevent this, they probably would have been working on these dams to get them up to snuff. So one of the things I would like to know more about is that, are the Chinese, from what we're being told here, will they use this as a catastrophe, i.e., not unfortunately not a false flag, but an event in their country to then further spur on their agenda for their 1 point something billion people? Because once again, we're all in the same boat here dealing with that currently health situation. But this dam situation, it's not a new story, I don't think. I think the dam, they've known about this for quite some time, and if they haven't done anything about it, perhaps they want the thing to go, they probably want it to break so that it can cause the type of destruction it will cause, that will then trickle out and lead to more of a global systemic problem. So that's one of my concerns about that as well. What else we got here? It says, if Lebanese would have maxed all credit cards and bought silver, they would be pretty happy right now. So here's the thing about that. Low blood pressure. That thought right there, it definitely works in the developed world. But my initial response to that, without even really knowing, is that I would imagine the Lebanese people, they may not have access, the majority of people may not have access to credit the way we do here. And so given that we have the reserve currency, it's easier for us to get credit because that's how our system operates, is upon credit and taking people further into debt. But in Lebanon and in other countries that are not developed, or what I call it, it could be second world type nations or underdeveloped. They may not have access to credit the way that we do here. So I don't think getting credit cards may be easy to the majority in Lebanon. So you probably have to be a high net worth individual to have a credit card in that country, which means you could if you had those type of funds, but the majority wouldn't have access to credit. So once again, that's a developed world problem that we have, where we know that you mentioned about taking out multiple credit cards, because you can in this country, but it's not too many other countries you can do that. Lebanese people trade in dollars in the black market. Yeah, so as of now, let me see. Let me go back to the article here. But what was the exchange rate? The exchange rate on, let me see. The exchange rate, so the official rate is 1507, and it says basic food or whatever. What's the black market rate? I saw something in here. Clearly, it's going to be a lot higher. No, this article doesn't have it here. So, but that's just Lebanon. So here's another article here I thought I would touch on real quickly. And so as the PPP program is underway, there's more information being given as to who has borrowed or who has received funds. And so here's an article here from the AP. You can tell it's not necessarily anti-Trump, but they're not fans or supporters really, because they pretty much shine light on how, if you thumb through here, it talks about a lot of companies and companies and individuals that are Republicans and associated with Trump's party that have received all types of funds. And so one thing that really caught my attention about this article here is the fact that a lot of financial firms and a lot of hedge funds and a lot of money managers, they've received lots of funds. And let me see here. And the question was, you have all of these firms that are responsible for investing people's funds, they're having issues, or they're portraying to have issues, and they're taking these loans out just to meet their overhead so that they don't have to dip into any of their funds. And so the list goes on and on as far as the entities that are receiving funds. And so I would encourage you guys to take a look at that, because this is a small attempt to bail out some Main Street people, but a good chunk of the people in this article here happen to be millionaires and billionaires already, that basically get a chance to save their own funds because they get to use the governments to try to keep payroll, while most of them are probably filed for bankruptcy or will file for bankruptcy anyway, because consumer spending will never go back to normal, in my opinion. So therefore, there'll be no profit. So a lot of these companies here will go out of business. I think a lot of small restaurants as well as major chains, unfortunately, will be going out of business as well. So, but yet we can talk more about this later on this evening if you guys are interested. And so I'll put this right in the chat here. And then I got another article or two, and then we're going to dial back. And so here is another article that I thought was worth mentioning. And it has to do with another country having issues with their currency. It's the Iranian rial. And so another example of country under sanctions that's been devastated by their national currency. And so, and one thing I did with all these countries here, the Lebanon as well as Iran, I decided to look up for those individuals that would have been aware and prepared themselves by redeeming their national currencies and getting into something that's a little bit more real and tangible, how much better off they would be. And so here's a gold price right here in the Iranian rial. And so we look at this thing here. As of right now today, for 1 ounce of gold, you're going to spend 162 million reals for 1 ounce. So imagine if you have taken some of those reals years ago as you saw your country crumbling and got out of your national currency and got into something a little bit more tangible and real and something that you own, you'd have been better off. And so sad thing is, if I look at the Lebanese pound as well, it's in the same position. Let me find this thing here where it is. Where does it go? Here we go. Lebanon. Here we go. Lebanese pound. So same thing here. 2.7 million pounds for 1 ounce. And so it's just a matter of history. History always repeats itself, my friends. We will see something like this denominated in the Federal Reserve notes as well. And so what else we got? I'm checking via chat. And then we will dial back and connect again later on this evening, where I want to hear from you guys directly. So I see a couple people trying to call in. These news sessions here are just designed to cover a couple top stories, give you guys something to chew on for the day. And then between now and this evening, if you guys come across any other stories worthy of talking about, bring it to the table tonight. We can talk further. What else we got here? It says that the companies bailed out. Full of Hope says George Gammon shows how the top 619 companies bailed out are part owned by China. Yeah, as well as a lot of the agricultural farms in the Midwest happen to be Chinese owned as well. So that doesn't surprise me at all. That goes to show that's how Trump is able to push for a good deal. He can get that. He can push for that deal because a lot of the companies, as well as a lot of territory in this country, has already been purchased by China. So any type of bailout of any significant amount typically gonna find its way back to its owner, which happens to be China. So I remember talking about this years ago. Like here in the Metro Detroit area, we have a large amount of factories and vacant warehouses. And I'm not sure what the source was years ago, but a good portion of all of that was already purchased by entities that are of Chinese origin. So yeah, that's a part of the next world order. Like as I mentioned here before, especially Detroit, we will get back into manufacturing, but it's going to be owned by, I believe, the Chinese, and we will be making products made in America to send over to China. So that's that's probably well after 2030 for sure. Anyway, here it says, what bank runs in China? I heard some of the gold reserve is plated copper. So yeah, I saw an article about there's a something in Wuhan where there's some type of bank or whatnot in Wuhan is the creator of a lot of those tungsten or copper bars plated in gold, and they've used them for collateral for loans, and they've received up to I saw some about 4.1 billion that was already secured based upon the fake gold. So the question is, okay, once you extend the loan and the collateral you receive, it's fake, do you immediately get your funds back or what? Because I'd imagine like that 4.1 billion or whatever it was that it was already given out has already been put to use. So yeah, a lot of people will not be made whole. August Jones says, keeping it 100, sir, but China is facing judgment after judgment now. Three Gorge Dams is just another more to come. Hey, I can't. I'm not one to pass judgment on anything of that nature. But like I mentioned before, the problem with those dams is nothing new. I believe the Chinese knew about it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they want that to occur so that they can now be in a position where the world rushes to try to help them, as opposed to right now them being painted as the villains. Because as we speak right now, Australia, New Zealand, and a couple other countries are all now pointing the finger at China and how they're the reason for everything the world is experiencing. So it's kind of hard because it's the world versus China right now, as far as the media that we're being told as to how people want answers. Where did it originate in Wuhan? Was this intentional? And so what better way to divert attention off of your country other than to allow some type of catastrophic event to occur that will change the narrative real quick. So if you have 400 million people die in the dam collapsing and it's flooding out entire regions, I'd imagine at that point the global news won't be talking about China as the enemy anymore. They're all going to be looking to donate funds and to go over to help and relief and aid, and so that's a good way to to get your head above water by allowing an event to occur that could get you out of the bad news category. Judgment, wait till the years. I don't think it will go as high as Mike Maloney keeps saying. And so yeah, for those who had a chance to watch Mike Maloney's video yesterday, I did about with a triple digit silver. And so I'd imagine the people orchestrating this restructuring is also aware of that, and they're concerned with that. And that's why one of my concerns is that, as I mentioned earlier on, this next decade is going to be a shift like we could have never imagined. And whether it's triple, 4, 5, 6 digits, whatever, silver, gold, whatever, the type of world we're going to be living in, I don't think having that much wealth will still make anything any more comfortable than it would be if everything were normal. Just because if majority of the population, 300 million plus people in this country are on their knuckles, it's going to be hard for you to enjoy your life comfortably, and in a sense where you won't be at risk, put it like that. So all things worthy of talking about later. So all debts get paid. Yeah, inflated away. It says, hey, Mike, you need to watch Spiro Securo's YouTube channel. Okay, not familiar with them, Spiro Securo, but I would definitely check that out. Does anyone really believe the U.S. would honor their debts to China foreigners? Does anyone believe they won't take back all the land and stuff foreigners bought? Alexander, I would like to think that at this current point, in order to cooperate on an international stage moving forward, in order to reestablish trust amongst nations, the U.S. will not be able to outright confiscate all the land and all the entities and businesses that were purchased by China, because that was a part of the plan. Like, China bought into that. Same way Saudis bought into the petrodollar system is we issue debt, you buy it, you recycle it in our markets, we secure you, you live happily ever after until now, until oil prices is no longer what they used to be. And so there's going to be a reneging of promises, but yet, once again, how would you reestablish trust amongst other nations if you confiscate land and or hold land for ransom? So I think it wouldn't work well if that's a part of the plan. So I don't know, but at this point, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure what is or how things will play out given the uncertainty and everything. Says Mike says, low blood pressure. Mike, I'll be pretty comfortable at 3,000 silver. Yeah, on the surface that sounds good, but once again, it's all about what will you be able to do with those, with that. You know, you were financially sound and preparing for the day your currency went belly up, but then what will you be able to buy will be the question. Who will be out there looking to sell? And will you trust being able to do a transaction and wait one-on-one without having to worry about somebody realizing, oh, this guy, he saved up a couple ounces, I know where he live at, I'm coming for him, type of thing. So just stuff worth talking about. But anyway, I just want to check in. Went a little bit longer than I anticipated, but just wanted to share a couple stories in the news today, get your thoughts on it. And as always, between now and tonight, definitely let me know what comes across your window, and let's talk about it further tonight, because I'm curious to find out what you guys think. So that being the case, that's all she wrote for this afternoon live stream. Want to get back to trying to do more of these where I get a chance to share a couple stories and talk some trash with you guys, and try to make sense of this craziness we're all in. So other than that, make this day the best day of your life. I'll see you guys later tonight. Peace.
Hey there, sorry for this interruption, but I wanted to bring something to your attention. If you've been enjoying this live stream, why don't you partner with me and be a support to the channel via Patreon membership for just a minimum of $5 a month. All you have to do is scroll down beneath this video here, click the Patreon link, then consider donating as little as $5 a month towards the channel. A little bit of crumbs can go a long way, and I appreciate your support. Now, let's get back to this live stream. Hey there, hope all is well. Back at you today with some more RTD News updates. And as you can tell from today's title, Congress is coming after your 401